kwa usalama wetu pamoja na wale tuwapendao. Kutokana na hali hii, imetulazimu kuwa na mitaa zisizo na watu, milango zilizofungwa na uhuru wetu wa kutembea imepungua kwa kiwango kikubwa. Ila ni wakati kama huu ambapo moyo wa Wakenya wa ujasiri, ukakamavu na uwiano utatuwezesha kupambana na janga hili kama tulivyopambana na majanga mengine hapo awali. Na katikati ya majonzi na kiwewe hiki, bado matumaini yapo. Matumaini kuwa tutaweza kushinda janga hili na kuinuka kwa umoja kama Wakenya. Na tutakaposhinda janga hili, uzuri wa nchi yetu wa kipekee utakuwepo kutusisimua tena. Kwa mara nyingine, tutarejelea yale tunayoyapenda. Tutaelekea kwenye fuo za bahari kujivinjari na tutarudi mbugani kuona wanyama wetu wa kifahari. Bila shaka, tutaanza tena kuunda kumbukumbu za kipekee na wapendwa wetu kwa kutangamana na kula vyakula vitamu. Tutajumuika na marafiki huku tukishangilia timu tuzipendazo. Tutaenda matembezi mbugani na tutajiburudisha tena kwenye mikahawa ya burudani. Pamoja tutashinda janga hili na tutarejelea yale tuyapendayo kwa dhati. Magical Kenya, uzuri wetu wa kipekee bado unatungoja.
Yeyote aliye na kinga hafifu mwilini yuko katika hatari ya kuambukizwa COVID-19. Hao ni kama watu ambao wanaishi na magonjwa kama vile virusi vya HIV, kansa, TB, kisukari, miongoni mwa magonjwa mengine. Lazima wazingatie matibabu ili kuboresha kinga mwilini. Lazima wahakikishe wamepata dawa ipasavyo. Tembelea kliniki yako au kituo cha afya kilicho karibu nawe kwa maelezo kamili kuhusu jinsi ya kupata dawa. Pia wasaidie jamaa na rafiki kupata dawa. Dumisha mawasiliano nao na ufuate mwongozo wa kiafya kutoka kwa kituo cha afya ili kujikinga na virusi vya korona. Pata habari kuhusu COVID-19 kupitia vyanzo vinavyoaminika. Piga 719 au bonyeza *719#. COVID-19 inazuilika. Jilinde, linda familia na jamii. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na serikali ya Kenya.
It is 7 years for Sirisia Member of Parliament John Waluke. But what are the options? Good evening. Thank you so very much indeed for your time. This is Inside Government. Not actually Inside Government, but Business Insight. We are live from Broadcasting House. Plus on this bulletin, we look at the reopening of the economy, and President Uhuru Kenyatta says it is in the hands of county government. What needs to be done? Plus, we are looking at the figures and exactly asking ourselves, how is coronavirus, how are we performing in terms of numbers? And as you can see, they are on your screens right now. The number of tested patients now stands at 3,918. Confirmed cases today, 178. Recoveries stands at 34. And of course, deaths were reported at 2. Look now, the total tally tested so far, 155,314. Confirmed cases, 3,885. Recoveries is 1,857. And deaths stands at 1,132. And the big question is, when will all these come to an end? I don't have an answer for now, but one thing is for sure, we are looking forward to that moment before we can go back to our lives. We have a detailed coverage of today's event starting right here on Business Insight. But first of all, let's look at the highlights. Tough times for Sirisia MP John Waluke as the court sentences him in jail for 7 years or pay the state over 500 million shillings. No one is above the law. The Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutiambai, interdicts a police officer involved in a shooting incident in Nandi County that ignited chaos.
County governments and their readiness to respond to new imported cases of infection will also equally largely determine our national readiness to reopen the country as a whole.
President Uhuru Kenyatta says Kenya will ease COVID-19 containment measures only if devolved units are prepared. My name is O'Brien Kimani. At O'Brien Kimani is my Twitter handle, at KBC Channel 1. Keep on engaging with us. Sirisia Member of Parliament John Waluke has been fined over 700 million shillings in connection with the 297 million shillings National Cereals and Produce Board maize scandal. Waluke was convicted alongside Grace Wakungu and will both serve 7 years each in prison if they fail to pay the money. The Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Juma termed the scandal a serious economic crime where the taxpayer was defrauded huge sums of money and gave the two 14 days to appeal. Should the appeal fail, then Waluke automatically loses his seat in Parliament. We're working on that story. It's coming up shortly. The government will compensate over 400 small-scale traders who were affected by the Thursday dawn fire at Gikomba open-air market here in the county of Nairobi. To try and end the frequent fires in the biggest retail market in the country, 10 million shillings has been allocated to modernize infrastructure in the area within the next 3 months as investigations commences to ascertain the cause of the fire.
The situation in Gikomba market telling a sad story of struggling traders. A misery they say shouldn't have visited them at this difficult moment when the economy is doing so badly due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Kuna kitu imebakia, mabati tupu. Biashara yetu ndio hii yenye tulikuwa tunategemea kila kitu. Tumechomekiwa na nyumba, tumechomekiwa na biashara, watoto wako nje, hatujui tutaanzia wapi.
Kwa kweli tumeumia sisi kama ambao wenye tunabeba mizigo, kubebea watu mizigo kupeleka pale tunapeleka. Hii ndio ajira yetu. Hii ndio kazi yetu. Unaona, tuko wengi sana. Hapa ni familia nyingi sana zinalia brother. Kama leo saa hii hakuna kazi tumefanya. Tangu niingia hapa saa 12 asubuhi.
Mbona saa 8 na kuna kavio imetoka wapi? Saa 8 ya usiku na moto ya 2014 ilitoka hiyo masaa.
According to most of them, nothing was salvaged in the down fire incident whose cause is yet to be established. To try and stem the problem, the government has stepped in to resolve the perennial fires in the market. As part of the solution, 10 million shillings has been allocated to be used to upgrade the infrastructure in the area, which has been of key concern when trying to respond to fire distresses. Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibisho, accompanied by top government officials who visited the market after Wednesday night fire destroyed property of unknown value, assured affected traders that they will be compensated.
Immediate action that we need is on people whose houses have been razed by this fire, the 399. And we have agreed that with immediate effect, we are going to assemble them together and give each one of them 10,000 shillings so that they can be able to sort the small issues they may have to ensure that none of them spends the night tonight.
While assessing the damage caused by the fire that consumed cereals, second-hand clothes and other properties. Kibisho said the government has begun investigations to identify individuals believed to be behind the recurrent infernos in the market.
We have opened a report desk in Nyayo House, 5th floor, so that together with the business people and the community around Gikomba, we'll be able to gather sufficient intelligence that will eventually lead us to nailing the culprits who are causing these fires, because we don't believe these are natural fires.
Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
Elsewhere, President Uhuru Kenyatta says the decision to reopen the Kenyan economy will be informed by the level of preparedness by the devolved units to respond to COVID-19 infections. The head of state told governors the decision to relax current restrictions will largely be determined by the county's capacity to effectively respond to new coronavirus infections imported into their territories.
At a virtual meeting of the national and county governments coordinating summit, President Uhuru Kenyatta reiterated that county governments have a huge role to play in guiding reopening of the country's economy.
And this is because the nation is the sum total of our 47 counties. And if the counties have met the necessary thresholds, then the nation as a whole will be ready to reopen.
Council of Governors Chairperson Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya presented a progress report on the rollout of the minimum COVID-19 response measures required ahead of the reopening of the economy. The report shows that counties have a total of 6,898 isolation beds against the national target of 30,500 units. 12 counties have met the 300 per county isolation beds threshold, while 34 devolved units project to meet the target within the month. 36 counties are said to have a cumulative sum of 343 ICU beds, while 28 counties have a total of 337 ventilators. A total of 16,914 health personnel have been trained on COVID-19 management, among them 59,449 community health volunteers. Oparanya also indicating that a guideline on home-based COVID-19 management, which is being rolled out, has also been developed. Oparanya was categorical that the COG supports the gradual reopening of the economy, subject to the setting up of a strict regime of COVID-19 containment protocols for businesses, places of worship, and inter-county travel.
We propose that a multi-agency approach is applied on disease containment through improvement of testing capacity.
Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, however, indicated that COVID-19 infections in the country are on the rise and advised against reopening of the economy before the response preparedness threshold agreed upon is fully met. On his part, Deputy President Dr. William Ruto supported the President's proposal for progressive reopening of the economy and urged counties to speed up the implementation of COVID-19 containment measures. Religious and business sector leaders were also represented in the virtual meeting. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
The Ministry of Health has established a call center for nurses at the Kenyatta National Hospital aimed at addressing a social needs of the frontline healthcare workers amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Health Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Mercy Mwangangi said the facility is crucial in creating a safe space for medical workers who are at the heart of managing the health crisis. The call center was launched on a day Kenya recorded 178 cases of coronavirus from 3,918 samples screened within 24 hours.
ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs Cabinet Secretary Joe Musheru was the chief guest during the launch of a call center for nurses at the Kenyatta National Hospital. The center will, among other things, address psychosocial needs for healthcare workers on the front line fighting COVID-19 disease. Musheru committed to ensure his ministry offers services needed during the current crisis.
They are also not immune to some of the stresses that we also go through. But for them, they even see more. They even, see the suffering of many. They see even people who lose their lives. And so they also need to get support. And to be able to get support even when they're in remote areas. That's why we've been able to partner to create a contact center, a call center where someone can call from their job and be able to talk to someone who is experienced and even be able to receive help.
Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, termed the initiative a milestone for healthcare workers in the country.
The way that this center provides comfort, this center actually encourages healthcare workers to be able to speak out and to share their experiences and whatever difficulties they may be having in the field.
Today is an historic moment where all healthcare professionals and their leadership have come together to take care of themselves in terms of psychosocial support and our mental health, given this unprecedented war of the COVID-19.
If we are not loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves, then we become inadequate to offer the services that we should.
Meanwhile, Kenya recorded 178 new coronavirus cases on Thursday, raising the total tally to 5,384.
This brings to total our country caseload to 5,384 so far. And cumulatively, we have tested 1,055,314,000. All the positive cases, except 3, are foreigners. We have 123 males and 55 females. And our youngest today is a 1-year-old infant, and the oldest is 76.
The CAS also announced 34 patients had been discharged from various health centers, increasing the number of recoveries to 1,857. Total fatalities from COVID-19 are now 132 after 2 patients succumbed to the disease in the last 24 hours. As the country continues with the fight against the coronavirus, health officials are acknowledging that the COVID-19 preventive measures such as washing of hands have subsequently reduced the disease burden in the country. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, has launched investigations into the alleged fatal shooting of a man at Leso's Trading Center in Nandi County. In a statement, IPOA's chairperson Anne McCory said the body's rapid response investigation team is already at the scene and has initiated investigations into the matter with a view of establishing what transpired. The shooting ignited a protest in the area on Thursday, with locals touching a house said to have been the residence of the officer.
Tension is high in Leso's Nandi County following a fatal shooting of a man by a police officer. Irate residents set ablaze a house belonging to a police officer in the area, igniting confrontation with the police. According to the locals, the officers attached to the station have been demanding bribes and harassing locals while implementing the COVID-19 containment measures.
I, as Inspector General of Police, have given firm instruction that the officer to be interdicted, and I confirm we have already interdicted the officer. As I talk, he is in police custody, awaiting to be arraigned to court tomorrow morning.
The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, says it has launched investigations into the incident.
I want to assure Kenyans that the National Police Service, we don't condone any irresponsibility by individual officers. This action does not reflect the bigger National Police Service.
On Wednesday, a section of area leaders called for calm, even as they pledged to push for far-reaching reforms in the police service.
We need real police reforms, and one of them is to have modern equipment, so now we can be able to even introduce body cameras, to introduce the audio systems that can be tracked, to have a synchronized way of command.
In most cases, we see transfers. A police officer commits a crime, then is transferred to another region. They will continue with the same crime because some of them are criminals.
Every action will be taken accordingly. There's no need for any hulabaloo. Is individual officer, and those responsibility he will carry it as individual.
Elsewhere, police in Kirinyaga County are looking for a 35-year-old man accused of killing and burning the body of his girlfriend on Wednesday. Murimu Anjobe, a casual laborer, is said to have killed his girlfriend before burying her in a shallow grave inside his compound in Keni Village, Kirinyaga Central Constituency.
Ningependa kueleza wazazi kwa saa hii tuko na maneno ya COVID-19. Tutapata tuko na watoto wetu nyumbani vijana. Mzazi angalie mtoto yake hako wapi na ni wakati gani, yako pande gani. Because kama tutapata ni either mtoto msichana ama ni mtoto kijana amefanywa kitu kama hiyo, tutauliza mzazi maybe alijua mtoto yake hali.
Kirinyaga Central Sub-County Police Commander Doreen Odor said the body will be exhumed Friday, even as she called on the public to volunteer information that may lead to the arrest of the alleged culprit. Meanwhile, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation says it is in pursuit of 2 armed men captured on camera robbing a man in Kimani area of Nairobi County. In the video, the man is seen walking with a black backpack before being accosted by 2 armed men in brown and black jackets. The video, which has been shared widely on social media, was subject to debate on Thursday, with Kenyans calling on the government to crack down on criminal elements in the capital.
Managing a pandemic requires change of tact at every stage. This is why the Ministry of Health rolled out the home-based care for those infected with the COVID-19. Home care calls for a dedicated caregiver or caregivers, a crucial element in patients' recovery journey while at home.
This caregiver should be a person who is knowledgeable, who has been oriented and can take care of issues of infection prevention control. This person is healthy. This person is not needing assistance, whether it's disabled or not, so that he can be able to take care of the other patient. And also to take as much precaution as possible, not to enter, if possible, in the exact space where the patient is whenever it is possible. If it's not, you should do it with protective equipment, protective clothes. The utensils, the things that are being used by the patient should be clearly chlorinated. Use Jik 0.5% so that you can clean it, and then cleaned with soap, then it can be used again. So basically, they need to follow this criteria for this assessment to be done. Then there is a follow-up. There is daily follow-up for this patient in terms of the symptoms, whether they're increasing, and in terms of the temperature. If there are any changes or the symptoms are worsening, then this patient needs to be referred.
You're watching Business Insight. We are live from Broadcasting House. We're taking a short break, and thereafter we are back with more stories. Stay right here.
The Kenya Film Commission is glad to announce that the 3rd edition of My Kenya, My Story mobile phone film competition received over 250 submissions. The call for submissions closed on the 3rd of June 2020. From the submissions, 20 top films will be shortlisted for public voting. You are encouraged to watch and vote for your favorite short film, which will be done via the Kenya Film Commission YouTube platform. The winner of the best short film will walk away with 200,000 Kenya shillings, while the first and the second runners-up will receive 150,000 Kenya shillings and 100,000 Kenya shillings respectively. Voting runs from 17th June 2020 through to 26th June 2020. The winner will be announced on 30th June 2020. Kenya Film Commission. Film Kenya. Capture Africa. The long-standing rivalry between Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards, which dates back to the late 1960s. But this time, we fast forward to 1987, when the Mashemeji feud picked up in the final of the Moi Golden Cup. It's an encounter you can't afford to miss. From our archives, this Saturday at 5 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1, as we relive the golden days, with our legends.
Jumapili hii kwenye runinga ya KBC, ungana naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 2 asubuhi.
Ningetaka nikwambie, our Jehovah God, because the Bible says he is the same yesterday, today and forevermore. He is able to take you to a place of abundance. He is able to take you to Rehoboth in the name of Jesus Christ.
Kipindi ni neno la neema, ukiletewa naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu. Usikose.
Let's go back to the court. And Sirisia, Member of Parliament John Waluke has been fined over 700 million shillings in connection with the 297 million shillings National Cereals and Produce Board maize scandal. Waluke was convicted alongside Grace Wahungu and will both serve 7 years each in prison if they fail to pay the money. The Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Juma termed the scandal a serious economic crime where the taxpayer was defrauded huge sources or huge sums of money and gave the two 14 days to appeal. Should the appeal fail, then Waluke automatically loses his seat in Parliament.
While welcoming the sentence, Deputy Director of Public Prosecution Alexander Muteti, however, said he was going to appeal the non-custodial orders granted to the accused. The Speaker of the National Assembly and the Parliamentary Service Commission will be notified to ensure Waluke complies with the orders given. Lawyers representing Waluke and Wakungu during mitigation requested for non-custodial sentences, claiming the two were remorseful and were first-time offenders. Alexander Muteti vehemently opposed pleas for non-custodial sentence, arguing that releasing them would open floodgates for other corrupt individuals to enjoy freedom at the expense of public funds. Meanwhile, details have emerged on how the errand maize scandal unfolded, with the taxpayer losing 297 million shillings for the purchase of 40,000 metric tons of maize in 2004 that were never bought. According to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the money was shared between errand general suppliers, with the accused, who were directors, pocketing 90 million shillings. Law firms, namely Ahmed Nasir and Company Limited, was paid 40 million shillings. Saede and Soita Advocates pocketed 34 million shillings. Former Deputy Chief Justice Nancy Baraza made away with 5 million shillings in legal fees, with the rest of the money being withdrawn using checks. The funds were shared in a record 2 days. For Channel 1 News, I'm Ben Troinjwe.
And a family in South Sea Estate in Nairobi is searching for their 51-year-old kid who went missing 11 days ago. Jane Waruguru, a mother of 3, said to have left her home for town on the morning of 15th June and has never been seen again. Efforts to trace her through her mobile phone since then have been futile. The family is now appealing to anyone who might have any information about her whereabouts to contact them or report to any police station.
Fear, confusion, and sorrow is what best describes the situation at the family of Samuel Ngunjiri Ndege, the husband to 51-year-old Jane Waruguru, whose whereabouts are not clear. 11 days now since she left her home in South Sea to run some errands with a friend in Nairobi's Central Business District.
Akawa amekuwa ametuambia ya kwamba alikuwa anaenda town kumugarantia au kumpigia sahihi koligi wake ndio kupata loan ya sako yao. Kutoka hapo, wakati niliamka saa 3 nikakuta tayari ameenda, kwa vile tu tulikuwa tumesikizana ataenda.
On the day she disappeared, her daughter tried to reach her, but the phone was off.
Akampigia simu kutoka kwa simu yangu, kwa sababu alikuwa anataka mama yake amnunulie kitu akirundi. So mtoto wangu akanirudishia simu yangu, akaniambia mama yao ni mteja.
Several attempts to reach her later in the day were also unsuccessful, for her phone remained switched off. The family's search for their kin at hospitals the very day was in vain, and they proceeded to report the matter at Langata police station.
Waliangalia kwa call logs, ile simu imekuwa ikipigia yeye au yeye akipiga. Ikaonekana mara ya mwisho ilikuwa Saturday saa 7:30.
With the frantic search efforts alive, the family made posters and also shared them on social media, and 5 days later they received a call.
Kulingana na yeye, aliona kama ni mtu ana limp, na akaulizwa kama ni kufichika mguu, akasema ni kama ni mtu alikuwa ametembea na naumwa ni kiatu. Nguo zilikuwa zile. Alisema huyu mama alikuwa kama mtu amepotea, akaona kama alisimama mahali kulikuwa na junction, akaangalia upande na mbele yake kidogo kwa muda mfupi tu, basi akadecide baadaye aendelee na vile alikuwa anaenda tu.
The family, however, with the call being a dead end, her disappearance remains a mystery, as no one knows the friend she had gone to meet. According to the family, Jen, who is a teacher by profession, is in sound mind and a jovial person. Any information regarding her whereabouts can be directed to Samuel Ngunjiri through contact number 0725 583 084 or Francis Madenge through contact number 0728 760 858 or any police station. Kamchemenza for Channel 1 News. The sudden disappearance of Jen Waruguru has left her family with more questions than answers. But even amid the confusion, the family can only hope that sooner rather than later they will be able to locate their mother. Kamchemenza for Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
Irate resident of Narokopor estate in Kitengela, Kajiado County, demolished the recently constructed bridge worth 9 million shillings, protecting what they termed as shoddy work by the contractor. The bridge, which connects Kitengela town and Narokopir village, had calved in 2 days after completion, to the chagrin of the locals. More of these in our county news wrap.
The dejected residents of Nokopir Estate in Kitengela took the law into their own hands and demolished the bridge, saying the relevant bodies had ignored their plea. Using mattocks and other crude tools, the residents completely destroyed the bridge that connects the populous Nokopir Township and Kitengela Town. Kitengela MCA Francis Kaesha had a hard time calming the crowd. Kajiado County CEC in charge of roads, Alex Kiloua, however, said the contractor was fired a week ago after members of the public raised concern.
Ile shida kubwa sana ni contractor hana pesa na kasabo contract mtu hana pesa. Barabara hii daraja inajengwa na matope na nikakuja nikasimamisha wanafanya usiku.
Elsewhere, the Orthodox Church Archbishop Andreas Makarios has supported the interreligious committee set up to address the modalities of reopening places of worship under the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at St. Seraphim of Sarov Kanyanjar Orthodox Church in Kiambu during food donations to the needy, Macario said the church is looking forward to welcoming back its congregation that has been locked out by the coronavirus pandemic.
Fully support the initiative of the government and those who are in the committee, and it is our prayer that they will give to us the necessary instructions.
And a section of members of county assemblies from Western, North Rift and Nyanza sugarcane belt are calling on the national government to get rid of scrupulous sugar barons who smuggle cheap and unlicensed sugar into the country. This even as leaders in Kaburengu in Kakamega County threatened to storm the border control post in Busia and Malaba in protest against the alleged unregulated commodity.
Sukari hii imefika sasa, iko hata katika maduka, iko katika wholesale, inauzwa wazi. Na tunajiuliza, je, sisi kama hii sukari tutairuhusu iendelee kuingia wakulima wetu watakuwa namna gani?
In the meantime, Kuppet has urged the government to move with speed and absorb all the teachers employed under the Board of Management. Kuppet Secretary General Akelo Misori further called on the government to hire more teachers in readiness for the September schools reopening date.
But we are also saying that those schools, before they were closed, there were nearly all schools had BOM teachers. The government should start thinking about engaging the BOM teachers. There's something which is also very positive about those teachers, the BOM teachers, that they are the youthful teachers who are going to be useful.
In another development, Kenya Forest Service has refuted claims that it intends to clear over 1,500 acres of Menengai forest. KFS says it was only undertaking the normal bush clearing in readiness for the restocking of backlog areas as per the recommendations by the Task Force on Forest Conservation and Logging in Kenya.
The service is by no means clearing indigenous forests as implied, but it is undertaking what we call bush clearing in readiness of restocking of the backlog area.
Finally, police in Baringo have issued a warning to parents who are neglecting their parenting role, resulting to increase of teenage pregnancy. Area AP Commander Moses Olekaken has called on parents to be vigilant and monitor their kids, particularly now that they are not in school.
Watoto wameanza kuwekwa mimba hapa Baringo. Watoto wengi sasa watabeba mimba sana kwa sababu wazazi hawachungi watoto.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Timothy Kipnusu.
About to take another short break. And guess what? I'll be coming back with the latest in the world of business. And among the items prepared for you is why a number of supermarket chains are under investigation by the Competition Authority of Kenya. I'm not giving you details now. That is after once we are back.
Good morning, class. Good morning, Mr. Kipto. Now I want to write a composition using the word jogging.
Teacher, please give us spelling for the word jogging.
Sijasema jog ile jog ya kunyongwa. Hapana. Ninasema jogging. Na sijasema jog ile nje unasema jog ya kukimbia ya marathon.
Kupata jogging. Bonyeza *811*963#.
Jogging your brain ile kukimbiza akili.
Next on.
Ngoja niulize jamaa, nani hapa hivi amepimwa hivi majuzi?
Pale kwa Mwangi, si ni 10 bob?
Sijasema kupimwa weight. Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure.
This can be our plan B. We present this to the dean. Yes, we warrant her layoff.
Yes, I know, I'm sorry, eh? I ran into a little trouble, okay? And stop calling me that, eh? We are not peers.
Oh, we are not peers, eh? Maybe I should let your peers help you.
Uko na HIV, si eti ni mwisho.
Wewe uko nayo?
Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
Miss, I've been asking about Flight 648 from Paris, but no one is saying anything. Is something wrong?
A tragedy changed everything.
It's the plane. They're not coming. What are you talking about? What do you mean they're not coming? I won't leave you. Why did they have to die, Juana? Tell me why.
A last will is going to transform their lives.
It's Juana Lopez Ortiz.
Me? You have to get that woman out of here. Only heaven knows what kind of trick she used to get your father to leave her the insurance.
And the person she least expected will come to her door.
Ah!
Hey.
Ouch.
Be careful. Slowly.
Oh, no.
Slowly.
In love with Ramon.
It's an excellent ball, and the ball in for Iheanacho gives Leicester.
As Newcastle host holders Manchester City at 8:30 p.m.
To Maximan. Lazzaro's in the middle, it's gone in off him, I think. It's 3-0 Newcastle. Mendy, Aguero short, and it's going to go in.
It is a double treat you can't afford to miss. Don't miss out.
The construction of the multi-billion shillings Thwake multipurpose dam in Makueni County is on schedule despite setbacks occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. The contractor had sent home 400 workers, retaining 800, but Water Cabinet Secretary Cicely Kariuki says all employees will be brought back to hasten construction of the project that is now 37% complete.
Despite disruptions brought about by the COVID-19, Water Ministry officials maintain that construction of Thwake Multipurpose Dam is on course and would be completed by the year 2022 as scheduled.
This project, which took off in November of 2018, has a due date for completion at the end of the year 2022. So given the time that is left, clearly one would see that this project is moving well in terms of the timelines.
The project that is 37% complete is facing a 5% delay owing to reduction in the number of workers by 400 to 800. The CS says all of them will be brought back to recoup the time lost.
I have agreed with the consultants that going forward, the difference of an additional 400 workers must be brought back so that we catch up on the lost 5% of this project.
Water Ministry officials say they are working closely with Environment Ministry and 3 counties to address pollution of rivers Athi and Nairobi.
The source of the water that is coming here in Thwake Dam originates all the way from Ondiri Dam, coming all the way through Nairobi River, which, as you know, has been polluted. Was starting to clean up Nairobi River all the way at the source, which is Ondiri Swamp, or in Kikuyu.
The dam, upon completion, will serve close to 1.3 million households in Makueni, Kitui and Machakos counties. Betty Kiptum, Channel 1 Business.
And various supermarket chains are under investigation for arm twisting suppliers as the Competition Authority moves to rein in on the retailers contravening the buyer power law. The Competition Authority of Kenya says investigations follow complaints from suppliers who have faced delays in payment for goods supplied. The abuse of the Buyer Power Act came into force last year following amendments of the Competition Authority Act. The retail sector in Kenya continues to expand, with more than 30% of Kenyans frequenting formal outlets for their shopping. This has seen the entry of global retail giants like French conglomerate Carrefour and ShopRite of South Africa. Indigenous players like Tuskys, Quickmart and Naivas, among others, have also registered high growth. In 2018, the Competition Authority of Kenya established a Buyer Power Department to exclusively handle concerns about businesses abusing their influence over suppliers.
This is a matter currently under investigation, and so what I will say is that the investigations have not only been limited to Tuskys, they have been across the sector, and so all the players in the sector, we are interacting with them to assess the levels of compliance. And what I will say is that it's a process that's ongoing, and each retailer is submitting an update as is required.
The law defines abuse of buyer power as delaying payment by buyer of goods or services without justifiable reasons, in breach of contractual terms, unilateral termination of a commercial agreement without a notice, or a buyer demanding preferential terms that are unfavorable to suppliers, or demanding suppliers limit products sold to competitors.
Parties are supposed to inform the authority about their deal before they implement it. And the Act is very clear what amounts to an implementation of a merger. And the one thing that comes out very clearly is that over 20% payment of the agreed amount of the selling price. And once the parties have signed an agreement, they are required to present it before the authority. And the key thing that you need to have is that the agreement must be signed, is that the parties have agreed, because it's one of the requirements when you're filing in for your merger. The criteria is provided for in the Act, but we go ahead and we have developed merger notification forms that clearly stipulate how you're supposed to make in your application.
The penalty for abuse of buyer power is a 5-year prison sentence or a 10 million shillings fine, or both. The authority further says
There are tens of mergers and acquisition deals in the pipeline, though it is economic of the details, such as the total value of the planned mergers and acquisitions and the industries with the most requests.
Over-reliance on formal employment to drive growth within the pensions industry is to blame for the low penetration rates. CPF Group Managing Director Jose Akili says there is need to prioritize increasing awareness and broader availability of pension products to enhance savings and boost uptake, especially in the Jua Kali sector.
Even though Kenya's pension industry assets have grown to over 1.2 trillion shillings, penetration is still low.
We want to encourage our members, and we're working with the government and our regulator. We widen the coverage of pensions so that we have more than 20% of formal sector. We want to get into the informal sector, and these are the models we are discussing.
CPF Group Managing Director Jose Akili blames this on the current policy framework that heavily relies on formal employment, effectively cutting off a majority in the informal sector.
You know the way a baby trusts the mother or the father's hands. They feel Kenya government somehow will take care of them even in those days when they are no longer working. They think, but nobody's doing something about it. So they are therefore able to say, my money is my money. I make my money now. I enjoy it now. So they spend a lot of money on entertainment. If you look at the GDP of the country, it's huge. But then the saving amount is less.
Kili is calling on pension managers to customize products for those in the Jua Kali sector. Poor saving culture among Kenyans and mentality that investing in pension schemes is not for the youth has also limited uptake within the industry.
Now, Kenyans find it easier to, when they have a problem, solve it with a quick loan. Now, that tells you that unless we do something to make people first save, that you have to save something before you actually spend, we are in danger.
Nonetheless, the industry is optimistic of a turnaround following the review of the Retirement and Benefits Policy Framework that has, among others, created an avenue for members to make voluntary contributions towards post-retirement medical fund.
We want also to help our government to invest in some of the projects like affordable homes. We want to implement this universal health coverage by actually bringing medical, pre and post-medical fund arrangement by every pension scheme. And you can see where we are heading. This would actually compete in some way. Having a post-medical medical fund would actually compete with NHIF.
Yes.
So that people can see, I can make my own arrangements and still be able to, and use NHIF to complement.
Statistics indicate that most retirees spend a huge chunk of their pension savings on medical expenses.
I want to say that one of the things we are happy about, the recent changes in the law, is that one, the members of parliament, and I want to applaud them at least for rejecting the amendments to tax those who are earning pensions who are 65 and above. I definitely say that would have been very counterproductive. The second issue we are happy is that they also refused to introduce taxes on NSSF. I told you the amount of money which members are saving in NSSF, and if you tax them, what are you telling them? Just go and take the little money and die.
Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
And Kenya is targeting an additional 1 million kitchen gardens over the next 2 years as part of a nutrition improvement program. Agriculture Chief Administrative Secretary Anyaga says the project will target households with more than 5 family members in a project aimed at providing alternative livelihoods to households.
In a bid to enhance food security and nutrition in the country, the government plans to start 1 million kitchen gardens in the next 2 years. The project aims at mainstreaming nutrition in the agriculture value chain, with each household receiving 5 vegetable seeds varieties, as well as grants to venture into fish and poultry farming.
We have been very deliberate in all our programming across all the 47 counties to be able to provide finances to help farmers, and most particularly the homesteads, the households, to be able to set up their own kitchen gardens.
Under the initiative, a group of households will be offered grain dryer to minimize post-harvest losses.
CVAP, how we've designed it, will be giving seedlings and also some drying units so our farmers can be able to preserve the vegetables, and then also we'll be giving shade nets. So that
The project is also earmarked to boost nutrition and provide alternative income for selected households.
The more that farm pond technology is realized, the more there will be the nutrition and even income for our people.
Also on offer is training of youth on proper crop husbandry to engage in the program's value chain. Benson Dioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Well, tales of origins of the Ameru community are alive at the Murithi Mpuri Cultural Center in Meru County. The center hosts artifacts in Meru traditional homesteads on the banks of River Kithika Muni. Tonight we premiere a 4-part series on tourism rebound post-COVID-19 in Meru County.
The word Meru is believed to have originated from the Maasai people who referred to Tigania and Imenti forests as the Meru forests, meaning quiet forests. The Murithi Mpuri Cultural Center, located on the tributary of River Kathika, details the journey of the Ameru from North Africa through the mythical island of Mbwa and up to the foot of Mount Kenya. The Ameru homestead consists of small cylindrical thatched houses, granaries, and a circular animal compound. Married women had a separate hut and a garden. This is a woman's hut in a given Ameru homestead. This arrow would be placed at the door to the hut as a symbol of engagement. No one is allowed to get into a woman's hut when she has a male visitor. Ordinarily, this is how a Meru homestead would look like. One of the outstanding features is a boy's hut. His is made of dried banana leaves, and this is because he is in charge of security.
Wakati kijana ametoka jandoni, after seclusion period, alikuwa anapelekwa kwa msitu kufundishwa jinsi ambavyo atakavyokuwa anaweza kutumia mikuki na mishale, na angeruhusiwa bila kwenda mafunzo maharum, na alikuwa anatumia hii kufundishwa ili aweze kupewa ruhusa ya kutumia mikuki. Na Meru alikuwa na mikuki aina mbili. Kwanza kuna hii ambayo ilikuwa inaitwa etumoleandire, etumolangura, alafu hii ilikuwa ya vita, alafu etumoleandire ilikuwa inatumiwa wakati wa kuimba. So hii inaitwa kirunya, ilikuwa inatumiwa kuketa wasichana. Kilikuwa kiatu cha kwanza kwa Wameru, na ni kile Wameru waliwaambiwa watengeneze kikiwa na nywele ndani na nje, kama njia moja ya kuwaruhusu hili waweze kutoka kwa utumwa mahali ambapo walikuwa. Na ni kiatu ambacho kilitengenezwa na ngozi ambayo inatoka kwa hii sehemu ya ng'ombe ambayo inaitwa ndurap.
The Ameru used artifacts as guided by the elders. At the center of this, tools used in defense during attacks or the Mau Mau uprising are also stored here. Learners frequent the cultural center for history and cultural lessons dating back to the pre-colonial times.
Hii fimbo ndio iliongoza Wameru kutoka mahali ambapo walikuwa utumwani mpaka tukafika. Na hii fimbo wakati Wameru walikuja wakasettle huku, awalinda aliiweka mpaka wakati aliseeka.
Irene Mchuma Udim, Channel 1 in the county of Meru.
Elsewhere, the Monetary Policy Committee has retained the benchmark lending rate at 7% in the third consecutive sitting, Thursday, saying the rate remains appropriate to cushion the economy against the adverse effects of COVID-19. The committee noted that Policy measures initiated by the National Treasury since March are having intended effects on the economy and will be enhanced by the announced fiscal measures. According to MPC, private sector credit has grown to 8.1% in 12 months to May, with manufacturing, trade, finance and insurance the leading credit flow. Exports also rebounded last month, improving 4.1% between January and May, driven by tea, horticulture and re-exports. The MPC further expects inflation to remain within target range in the near term. We still have more details about the housing and the office glut in Nairobi. Details next after the break.
People who choose to read their Bible daily, they become wiser and they become stronger than the people who don't read their Bibles. So when you choose hard, difficult things, you become a natural leader. He brings us to church to introduce to us another higher level of relationship that is called a faith relationship. You are also a solution to somebody else's problem. You cannot be the only problem all the time.
Join Pastor Jimmy Masharia on the Master's Touch this Sunday from 8 a.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Nobody shall come closer to me.
Look, it does not befit a soldier to hold an innocent kid as a hostage. Let him go. Just let him go.
This fool is putting his life in danger to save the people whom we had conspired to kill. I don't believe this.
Break the door.
Wait.
Do not make that mistake.
Why me?
If this door collapses, the whole palace will be in ruins.
I've found the way to get out of here.
A supply glut and high rent have combined to influence the low occupancy rates for commercial offices in the country. This has been made worse by the work from home recommendation after confirmation of the first coronavirus case in Kenya. But what options do office space developers have in this market, which has now put the power back into the hands of tenants? Betty Kiptum spoke with Hannah Clifford, the director of Nairobi Garage, a co-working space provider, and this is how that conversation went.
A morning walk to the office. This is what many workers have been used to in Kenya for years now. But now there is a new normal. Many have been forced to work remotely from home. What happens to the spaces that they leave behind, the office spaces? Will they be used anymore? In what way can they be used in the future? To give us an insight of the future of real estate, specifically commercial offices, we want to speak to Hannah Clifford. She is the director at Nairobi Garage. Thank you for speaking with us.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Now, these office spaces, many, of course, as I've said, have been used to coming into the office, sitting down, working and going home.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening currently?
Well, definitely sort of since March, when the first case of COVID was kind of discovered in Kenya, and then the measures kind of rapidly announced by the government to kind of social distance, stay at home if you can, work from home where possible, all of that kind of thing, meant that more or less overnight offices kind of emptied across the country. Now we're starting to see a bit of a return to normalization as companies are starting to see, okay, for some people in their team, it's not practical for them to work at home. And so they're looking at how can we now make a return to the office, you know, in the new normal scenario where there are still some measures in place that the government has announced, and they're also obviously concerned about like the health and well-being of their teams, but they also recognize that there is some kind of need for them to return to some kind of normal way of working. And so, yeah, as we kind of stand here in June, there's definitely people returning to the offices, but it's in a kind of slowly fashion, and each company is different actually. So certain companies, especially overseas businesses, are tending to kind of err more on the side of caution because they're basically taking their direction from their head offices overseas, which are very kind of, you know, don't make people come back to the office unless it's absolutely necessary. Some other businesses where really being together is more necessary are kind of saying, okay, how can we make sure that as we're returning to the office, we're able to put in place social distancing measures, things like thermometer checks at the entrance to make sure people don't have fevers, and, you know, implementing policies where they can have some kind of normalcy, but also taking into account the obvious risks that are still out there with COVID still being, you know, present in the society.
All right. You run serviced offices, of course, here and many other locations in the city. Could you just take us through what you are doing to ensure that your clients are safe, and even in that process, explain to us the changes that you've experienced, you know, as a serviced offices provider?
Definitely. Yeah, so definitely one of the things, the first point of defense, I think, for a lot of offices is the people sitting at your front desk. Here you can kind of see the front desk where we have a lot of signages and placements for people to stay away from each other. You also get your temperature taken by lovely patients. And then this is our kind of virtual reception that we use in order to gather people's data. So this is kind of what we use for the contact tracing. Like, should there be a scenario where we need to know, like, every single person who's come through the office, they put in their details here, and then we can get in contact with them should there have been an outbreak. So we can go through. This is the reception area. So all of the visitors to the space obviously get professional reception services. So even if you have kind of like a private office, your visitors will come through the same entrance as all of the other companies that sit in the space, and so they'll be received kind of in the same way. So this is our co-working area. So this is really suitable for companies that are maybe not yet at the size where they need their own private office, or maybe they have an office overseas and so they just need a couple of people in the office, or maybe they're out of town or they're working in the field a lot. In this kind of environment with you know, people really not knowing what's happening next, what's happening on a month-to-month basis, this is a way that companies can sort of say, okay, I need these people to come back to the office, but I don't need to sign a 5-year lease to say, this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 5 years. This is how big my team is going to be.
On that, have you seen the uptake going up or down over the past few months?
I think over the past few months, the trend that we've kind of seen is that right now, the biggest inflow of inquiries that we have is companies where their leases are expiring this year. And they might have been in the process of renewing and are now just like, we don't want to renew the lease. So they're typically moving into the private offices because they're moving from a scenario where they had a lot of their own space. And so they're taking up private spaces to basically be like, you know, this team still needs office space, we want to take up a private space. For the co-working, because it tends to be people who are a little bit like in and out, most people right now are still opting to work from home and are more taking the day passes. So they're coming in for, say, 3 days a week, but they're not paying for an entire month necessarily, unless their business really requires them to be in the office every day. But the biggest movement that we've seen so far, which I guess will probably continue, is larger companies downsizing, and because they don't want to sign a lease, they don't want that commitment, they're moving into the private offices. So like this is an example of a private office here. So it comes fully furnished. And so this is kind of ideal for, say, like a team of 7 people. Now with COVID, you might be looking at kind of saying, okay, we want to have half the amount of furniture in as before because we want to have like a little bit more spacing. So yeah, I think that kind of thing is going to be what a lot of companies are looking at now as well. Like even if we retain the office, do we remove some of the furniture? Do we spread it out? And actually, instead of having 50 people in the office every day, we have 25, and then they're working on a rotation.
And does a client have to give that request to have the space maybe designed in a different way, or does it also come from your end because of the prevailing circumstances?
That's something that we take on anyway as part of the service, generally speaking. But of course, like as with every business right now, we have to be more flexible. So yeah, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. But generally, I would say like our business model is actually designed for flexibility anyway. So it's kind of like a perfect fit for this.
Is that an advantage that maybe serviced offices have over traditional commercial offices?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things that they've always had, I would say, is the short-term element of the contract. So you don't have to sign a 5-year contract, you can sign a 1-year contract. And the fact that the fit-out costs are basically zero. So a normal, like traditional office, you're looking at dropping like quite a few million shillings on laying a floor, purchasing furniture, putting up partitions, investing in the IT infrastructure. So that's kind of always been why the serviced office element has been more popular for certain companies, because they don't want to invest that amount of money, or they don't want to commit to that length of term. I think now what we're seeing is even companies that previously were okay with doing that are now like, we don't want to do that. Even bigger companies where perhaps money isn't really an issue, they're just like, we don't know how much we're going to be in the office over the next year. So it just doesn't make sense for us to sign a lease. And I think it's kind of accelerating, I think, a lot of people's interest in this sector, because previously it was like a little bit seen of, oh, it might be for companies that are maybe not based here permanently and they don't want to invest and that kind of thing.
Small companies.
Small businesses, startups, that kind of thing. But now I think what we're seeing is more and more bigger businesses are actually seeing the value of that flexibility that serviced offices can offer versus the lease model.
Right. So now what does that mean for these other traditional offices?
I mean, I think what we're going to see is it's going to be quite hard in the next year, at least, I think, for landlords to sign 5-year leases. I think that demand is definitely going to drop. And I think what you might end up seeing is, which you kind of already starting to see slightly as well, is landlords where now this COVID situation has pushed out their tenants. They're now sitting there with a fitted out office because the tenant can't pay rent. And so they're now sort of looking and seeing, okay, if I have the office fitted out anyway, the tenant was in arrears, so I've basically got all of their assets now, rightly or wrongly, I mean, are kind of now seeing like, okay, if I can't sign up another tenant, can I chop this office up and start, signing short-term contracts for the interim, so at least I have some kind of money coming in. So I think you might see like more of that happening, more landlords who have previously said like, no, we're not going to do any of your fit out, we're going to charge you for any kind of goodwill that comes with the office from the previous tenant, and we're still going to insist that you sign a 5-year lease. I think that might change as landlords see that it's just not that feasible. But I think what companies will find is that element of service delivery that an operator like us can offer versus a landlord that really just wants to collect rent. They're not actually massively interested in, making sure the space is clean, making sure the space is managed, and at some point
works for your needs.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of level of flexibility. I think that level of inflexibility and kind of, let's say, not really customer service focused element of landlords, traditional landlords, I think will mean that ultimately they're going to push to move back to the traditional model, I would say.
Right. Of course, there are all these spaces that have now been left vacant. Well, not necessarily vacant, but the occupancy has gone down. What do you think this means now, the economic impact this will have?
On the entire real estate market?
Yes.
I mean, I definitely think that, I think that actually a lot of landlords have been a little bit flexible. There are landlords that have basically chased away their tenants, and so in that process, companies might have had to file for bankruptcy, and that's going to be obviously impacting employment figures and that kind of thing. I do think that there has been a bit of flexibility in some landlords where they're basically saying to their tenants, okay, pay service charge, pay 50%, and we'll figure it out kind of thing. And I think that kind of goodwill between tenant and landlord, and like supplier and customer, I think is what's kind of keeping the economy going right now, because basically you're reaching out to your suppliers, whether it be your landlord or like your internet provider, and basically saying, we can't pay rent right now, but can you continue to provide the services? So I think that we haven't really seen the full impact of this yet until time goes on and people start to now tighten their belts even more and say, okay, you know, now it's time, like pay up or we're going to cut services. And I think as that starts to happen, you're going to see like more job losses and that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I think the impact globally, also Kenya is also part of the global economy. So I think the impact of this globally is definitely going to have an impact on Kenya locally. If there is going to be a global recession, which it looks like there will be.
Yeah, it is happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you talk about the commercial offices, even before the pandemic hit, there were already low occupancy rates.
Yeah.
For the Grade A offices, it was because of the high rent prices. For the Grade B and Grade C offices, it was because of how usable they were.
Yeah.
So this is definitely bad news for such offices. Yeah. What is going to happen now?
Yeah, I mean, I think occupancy levels were already fairly low because for the reasons that you've mentioned, rents are really high. There was very little flexibility of landlords when it comes to kind of getting tenants in. So I think that this is just going to be exacerbated. I think unless landlords change significantly how they're interacting with tenants to get them on board, then occupancy will just like continue to drop, because the incentive for people, there was already not that much incentive for people to sign a lease anyway by landlords. There was very few, instances where a landlord would come and say, okay, I'll help you with your fit out in order to get you to perhaps take more space. There wasn't really that kind of level of negotiating power that the tenants had before, because many landlords were willing to just sort of say, it's fine, I'll sit with the office empty and I'll wait for someone else. There's many buildings around Nairobi, both of all grades, that have up until this point been sitting at like 20-30% occupancy for years. Right. And yet you speak to the landlord and they're like happy to for that to continue kind of thing. So I think unless that changes, occupancy is bound to fall. Like there's no two ways about it.
Mm-hmm. And do you think now this is maybe the turnaround point for the sector? Because the sector has been mad with accusation that the pricing is just exorbitant, so to say, that it does not make sense when you put it on the table, when you put all the factors on the table. Yeah. So is this the time that now these rental prices will go down and the cost of all these, both commercial, even residential, just across the board, will this go down now?
I would like to say yes, and I think that when you, as you say, like when you look at all of those factors, it's hard to see that not happening. But at the same time, like we've been saying that for how many years, like prices are going to go down, like it's not sustainable. Like there's no way that these prices, occupancy levels, can be this low, but prices remain this high. Like it doesn't make sense. We've been saying that for years, and still year on year prices go up, kind of thing. So, but maybe. I mean, if not now, then when? I mean, I think something has to give. And I think also it's not just price per square foot that's the issue as well. It's all of the extra stuff that you don't think about. It's like the lawyer's fees, it's the stamp duty, it's the service charge. It's like all of these kind of hidden extras that they kind of plug into your rent. So you're not just talking about 100 shillings per square foot. By the time you've added all of those fixed costs of like your net to gross ratio of the square footage, and all of those kind of like hidden extras, you're looking at much, much more than 100 shillings per square foot. So, and a lot of people don't realize that when they go into getting office space, and it's not till you get your final kind of term sheet that you're like, ooh, ow, this is like really, really expensive. So I think it's not only rents, but it's also just like leveling the playing field a little bit between landlord and tenant. Like, why should the tenant cater for all of your unusable space, for example, on a floor? Why should I cater for your lift shaft? Like, I'm not using it, Why should I kind of like fit out everything from the floor to like even a plug socket is not provided, yet I'm paying a premium for this space, kind of thing. So I think that those things will start to change, and perhaps with the rise of spaces like ours, customers have a little bit more leverage. They can say, well, I have everything in a serviced office that I'm not paying that much more for, and I get it managed, and it's fully flexible, and I can walk away when I want. So why would I go down the headache of, fitting out an office, getting into a 5-6 year lease?
Now, the growth of the sector was, of course, poised to be very high this year before the pandemic hit, definitely. Last year, it grew by around 5.4%, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And even with that, the sector was still seeing developments happening, Now, despite the occupancy issues that it has, the developments were still going on. What is going to happen to all these spaces that were now coming up?
Well, I think, you're already starting to see companies like Centum announcing that they're no longer going to be developing in the real estate sector, at least for the next 5 years. So I think, right now, a lot of the development that you're seeing it was planned 5 years ago. It was kind of seeded already, and they can't really stop unless they fully run out of money. So maybe at the lower end of the market, you will see projects just completely stall. But at the higher end of the market, those things have already been signed off and are already going to happen. So of course, the available real estate is going to continue to grow. Yeah, so I think that if rents can drop and landlords can be a little bit more flexible and put a little bit more money on the table up front to encourage companies to sign leases, you might see that it might, the occupancy might not fall that drastically. But I definitely think at the lower end of the market, I think it's going to be harder for buildings, lower grade buildings, to be able to fill those spaces. I think, especially as companies now, first of all, it's going to be companies at the higher end of the market that are still going to be in the market for office space anyway, right? So by virtue of that, they're looking for better grade buildings, and also there's now just a bigger shift, I think, around of head offices around the world that are focusing on hygiene and things like that, and of course, and security and those kind of features that when you're in an A-grade building like this one, you can see the security features that you get from kind of when you enter the building all the way up to your floor. The cleaning is better. There's proper masks on the security guards. There's sanitization points throughout the building. There's signages in the lift lobbies. So I think that those higher end buildings, I think, might still continue to maintain a better level of occupancy. I think for the lower end of the market, I think that's going to be harder for them.
Right. For the higher end offices that you mentioned, of course, most of the occupants were maybe expatriates or companies from abroad that had their offices here as well. Yeah. And most of these companies now, they are only focusing on ensuring that the people who are going to an office really need to go to an office. Yeah. So this definitely means the market is shrinking. Yeah.
At the moment, a lot of the staff in these international companies have flown out of the country, so they're not even in the country right now until borders open up, which we don't know when that's going to be. And of course, in this whole process now, larger corporations are basically going to their real estate teams and saying, "What's your plan? Now you need to come up with a return to work strategy of what the office is going to look like when people come back, whether it's September, whether it's January next year." We also don't know that yet either, right? I don't think they're in a rush to send people back because they're concerned about liability. They're concerned about the health of their staff, right? So they're not in a rush to send people back to the office before they need to. But also when they do, they're also thinking right now we have people working from home and it's kind of okay. I think it's a little bit hard to say right now whether working from home is really sustainable because, also what are you really working on right now? Everything, for sure. So I think companies that are now sort of saying, oh yeah, productivity is better than ever. I don't know if that's true, really. I think it's more a case of they're realizing that actually we don't need to have 10,000 square foot of office space. We don't need to have a huge kind of unnecessary floor plan for 50 staff kind of thing. And do we even need to have 50 staff in the office? If we're also looking at reducing the density of the office space as a whole and reducing our costs, could we have a much smaller space and say have everybody on rotation, have a shorter work week, have people come and work half day? And I think another thing that's going to happen, which you were already kind of seeing before, some companies like Standard Chartered in the UK had already moved a lot of their offices to a flexible workspace like ours, where they still maintained a central office, but then they had kind of satellite offices around London that their staff could go to where was convenient for them. So I think that's also going to be a trend that you're kind of going to see. It was slower to happen here, but it was definitely happening, where large companies are sort of saying, okay, we still want to maintain a head office where we can gather, like when time is when it makes sense, but if we have our central office in Karen, but our staff live in Westlands, would it make sense for us to have a flexible office solution in Westlands that our guys that live closer to that area can pop in when perhaps working from home isn't convenient for them?
Okay. Apart from now the big farms, the smaller farms, the small and medium enterprises, so to say, definitely that's, I think, a new frontier that the office space can look at. Yeah. There are serviced offices like yours already, and then now there are these commercial spaces that are wondering, what's going to happen to us? Is this a place that they can venture into?
Yeah, I mean, I think that generally what everybody's seeing right now is that anyone who's relied too much on like expatriate companies or international businesses are now feeling like it would have been much better if we had some kind of diversity and had like a local like market. So I think everybody right now is looking locally and is looking at like where is the money that we can get locally, because international business is kind of grinding to a halt. So I think that even landlords, they might sort of that have previously just been all about like the big names are, you know, just they don't have a choice really right now. They have to attract some of the smaller local businesses. But again, if you're not prepared to offer incentives for companies to come on board, like people don't necessarily have, you know, $500,000 just sitting in the bank that they can put into a fit out of a building that they don't even own. You know, the international businesses do that because that's how they've operated for years and years and years, and they have a whole department that and you know that's financed in a particular way that they can do it. But everybody else doesn't operate like that. You know, you need your money to actually fund your business, and you need that cash flow to, you know, pay suppliers and things like that. You don't want to put, you know, $50,000 in a deposit for 5 years. That like, you need that money to actually like operate with. So yeah, I think just out of necessity, there is going to be a bigger focus on like what businesses do we have in the local market. But you're only going to attract those businesses if you're really able to offer value for money and also service. One of the big benefits of when companies come here is if you're a small business, like you don't have time to be calling like the internet guy, like why is my internet down, calling KPLC, like you want to just like focus on like actually operating your business. You don't want to have to hire people to manage your office space. Right. You know, you want to hire people, you want to hire salespeople who can like bring you business. And so unless landlords are going to kind of up their game and being able to provide services that you don't have to constantly be calling the landlord to say like, why is there no water? Like, oh, you've not paid the water bill. Like, okay, like get a truck. Like, I mean, that's like half of your day gone on like such menial things. So yeah, I mean, landlords will try and attract those guys, but people want value, and they want services, and they want their time back to spend on like productive tasks. And for a lot of people, like running an office space like just really isn't that productive or interesting, and so they want to outsource it to someone like us. So that they can have their time and money to like focus on actually running their business.
So Hannah, let's talk about the working from home issue. Many people have been forced to work from home now.
Yeah.
So one point that is definitely arguing for a physical office is the mental health of the employees, that now they're working from home, it's just their space. How healthy is that?
Exactly. I mean, I think even for myself at the beginning of this, I was also working at home because I was like, well, you know, the office isn't very busy. All of my team are working from home, so I'm not going to like bring myself to the office to sit by myself. But at some point I was like, no, I'm actually just going to do that just to like get out of my house, because sitting at home, like staring at the same wall every day for like 8 hours a day is like really not healthy. Like only being able to talk to my cat is like not very fun. So I think that, yeah, definitely mental health is like a really, really big issue. And maybe it will just come down to personal preference. Maybe introvert people will be like, I want to work from home like 3 days a week. I'll come to the office like when necessary. And maybe more extrovert people will, you know, tend to just be coming to the office more for their own personal, you know, sanity kind of thing. I think it's more or less personal choice. But definitely I think when choice is removed and we're in a situation where we are in right now, where people are being instructed, stay at home. I think that element of like not having the freedom to choose, I think is quite stressful for people.
Right. Let's now talk about the survival mode that maybe the whole world has gone into. Many people from an individual level, institutions, investors, they are holding back on the money that they have, and definitely investments are not as vibrant as they were. How is this looking like right now?
The last few months have been like survival mode, where you don't have enough information to make any decisions, and so there's no reason to make decisions like in the dark. You just kind of go into a kind of like freeze on all conversations around, especially around funding as well. Like we might have to reevaluate whether this investment makes sense right now because things have shifted. But even if we then come to a realization that actually, you know, this sector that we were planning to invest in is still vibrant, the last few months haven't made sense for anybody to take any decisions in. And I think, I mean, yeah, when there's a downward trend, I mean, things are riskier, returns are less certain. So of course that affects every sector when it comes to investment. But also, I mean, there are investors that like to take risk, and there are probably great deals that companies are looking at. There are even some businesses in our sector that are already kind of saying that, okay, because we understand that probably profits are reducing in this sector, we're going to go on a buying spree and start buying up businesses because we know we can get great deals. We know that the sector is going to bounce back as soon as people start to return to work. But right now, we can perhaps snap up some great deals. And so yeah, I think it's starting to return to normal, where all businesses are kind of looking to normalize things. Like the survival mode is perhaps being lifted a bit. But, you know, we are looking into a long, probably recovery of many sectors. So by virtue of that, there is going to be a lot of people that are like holding onto the purse strings, being a little bit more cautious, maybe doing smaller deals, taking longer to transact, that kind of thing.
All right. And now, as we just come to a close of this, we've talked quite a lot about the commercial office sector. So what is the future now of this sector based on all the prevailing circumstances?
Real estate is always going to kind of be like a safe investment. But I think that there needs to be, and there probably will be, a little bit more slowness to make decisions, and a little bit more consciousness over when I'm building a building. Am I really making maximum utilization of space? Am I able to offer tenants a really good value proposition because I've designed it in a way that really caters for everybody's needs? Have I thought about things like parking ratio, where perhaps people were just like, oh, you know, we'll just do whatever is cheapest, whereas now they're finding that people, you know, those kind of factors are pushing people away. And so I think there'll generally in the real estate sector here be a better consideration of the quality of the build that they're building, and thinking before, like, who am I actually selling this product to? You know, who am I just building for the sake of having a building, or am I building to lease it out? And if I'm building to lease it out, I need to know, as with any business, who my customer is, what their needs are, what their price point is, what they're concerned about, what they're willing to, you know, not be that bothered about. So I think that is going to happen more. So you'll probably see like a general slower process of people deciding to build, and not just, oh, I got some money, so I'm just going to like put up a building because it's a good investment, but more kind of like, how am I going to get my returns through the tenants? And I think that will hopefully overall create a better environment in the Nairobi commercial real estate sector, where there's buildings that are built with more purpose and thought. And yeah, I mean, let's see if it will happen. But I think what needs to happen also is that landlords start to be more flexible. That's what needs to happen, I think. But I mean, who knows whether it will.
Well, a customer-focused future, and one that landlords understand their tenants. That's the future of the commercial office sector, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much, Hannah Clifford, for speaking with us.
No problem.
That was Hannah Clifford. She is the director at Nairobi Garage. They deal in serviced offices. And we have been talking about the commercial real estate sector, the commercial offices. What is their future? We hope that the future is bright for this sector. My name is Betty Kitum. Do stay with Channel 1.
Kiambu residents are set to benefit from water dams projects worth 48 billion shillings that the government says will ease water scarcity in the county. Irrigation PS Joseph Irungu says this will also be complemented by construction of water ponds and boreholes on reclaimed land.
Kiambu County is a water scarce due to its topography. To help residents access clean and reliable water, the government has embarked on construction of dams, water ponds and boreholes across the county. Part of the project involves upgrade of the sewage system at a cost of 600 million shillings.
We have mega projects that are in Kiambu. We have the dams, like we are doing Karimeno Dam, which is costed at 24 billion Kenya shillings. We have an upcoming Roiro 2 Dam at a cost of 17 billion Kenya shillings. And those dams may not basically serve the interest of Kiambu. Much of that water may be reticulated to Nairobi County, leaving Kiambu still water scarce.
Elsewhere, Microsoft launched the Game of Learners program that takes the form of a hackathon aimed at spurring innovation among university students in Kenya. The initiative, developed by Microsoft Africa Development Center, is student-driven and hands-on with the overall objective of empowering students to develop impactful solutions that can help address some of Africa's and the world challenges. Microsoft Africa Development Center Managing Director Jack Ngare says the program also targets to empower Microsoft students and partners to develop leadership skills by student participants, technical skills in a fun competition, while building awareness to all undergrad students. Finally, Scope Markets Kenya, in its latest review of the global market, says uncertainties related to COVID-19 are influencing movement of major currencies, stocks and commodities. The licensed non-dealing online foreign exchange broker says the second wave of coronavirus infections after easing of lockdown in major global economies, coupled with uncertainty in the timing of reopening of air travel, are hurting economic growth and oil demand. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Scope Markets Kenya projects that the Kenyan economy is likely to contract by 1% this year. The World Bank availed $1 billion in budgetary support to help the rebuilding of Kenyan economy as well as reduce the poverty gap post-pandemic.
Also, Sports Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed says doping will be criminalized in the country in a bid to make Kenyan sporting activities doping-free. Amina made the remarks at the Nyayo National Stadium when she distributed foodstuff from National Olympic Committee of Kenya to over 200 upcoming and veteran athletes to help them mitigate the effects of the coronavirus.
Doping has been a huge challenge that has greatly affected sports across the globe, with a great deal of Kenyan athletes held culprits. To date, more than 50 Kenyan athletes have been suspended by World Anti-Doping Agency WADA due to use of prohibited substances. Sports Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed has confirmed that doping will now be criminalized in Kenya.
For us, it's really important that we actually criminalize this because, as you know, the numbers have started growing. Yeah, the last 1 year, the numbers have really grown. I think by 4, 5. We can't afford to do that. These are very young people. They are very impressionable, and we are afraid that they are being encouraged to do this by others. And so we want to make sure that we look at the whole ecosystem and criminalize any doping within that ecosystem. And so nobody will be safe. If you're a coach, you won't be safe. If you are a health practitioner, you will not be safe. If you're a pharmacist, you will not be safe. So anybody who engages in this illegal activity will be captured within that framework.
The CS expressed optimism that the bill will be amended to become a law once it passes through the parliament.
We are waiting for ADAC to complete the work that it's doing. It's already reviewing the act. As soon as they're done with their bit, they will bring it to us and we'll do what's needed.
Anybody caught doping or having doped then should be criminalized, and that would have not, it could not happen without it being a law. Law, as we very well know, it normally comes from Parliament, and therefore now that is what she was talking about. Therefore now we are supporting it 100%.
Meanwhile, Athletics Kenya Nairobi branch today offered food donations to athletes in order to sustain their lives during this coronavirus pandemic. The federation is set to offer the donations to Malindi Athletics Camp this weekend before moving to Garissa. Frederick Muki for Channel 1 Sports.
The national government has embarked on the construction of a new sports stadium complex in Kisumu to nurture talent and boost sporting activities in the Lake region. The 1.4 billion shillings facility at Mamboleo Showgrounds has been named Jomo Kenyatta International Stadium and will have a capacity of 30,000 sports. And Cabinet Secretary, Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed says the money for the construction of the project shall be sourced from the Sports Fund. She said 350 million shillings has already been released, and the contractor is expected to complete the first phase of the project by December this year. The whole project is estimated to cost 1.4 billion shillings. At its completion, the facility will host football, rugby, tennis, and hockey pitches.
Complete this project. In any case, that's the directive that both me and the governor have from His Excellency the President and the former Prime Minister to make sure that this is done and it's done quickly. Today we are very, very happy that we've been able to break ground. We've named the stadium already, and so yeah, so it's all full speed ahead.
Okay, another question.
Thing that may even be developed a little further in future, so that we have spaces for basketball, for instance, yeah, and things like that. But this is the one that we're focused on, between now and December.
This was my passionate dream that we should use this ground here much more productive. And I'm glad that as that was happening, we were making plans to modernize Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground and build Moi Stadium. This happened, so I'm just so happy with the minister.
Oh, dear Lord. I mean, the time now is coming to 22, actually almost 10:30, and we have to wind up for today. Always a pleasure to have you join us. Thank you so very much. And remember, after this, we have Inside Government, and we are discussing how the education sector has been impacted by coronavirus, especially lending to students. And we'll be talking to Higher Education Loans Board CEO. So you all need to stay right here. We also have the weather, which is coming up next week. Irene Muchuma. Well, Irene, I mean, today the weather has been a little bit fair. I mean, yeah, it's been good and warm. Are we likely to see the same, this evening?
That's right, O'Brien. Temperatures are expected to go down as low as 15 degrees Celsius in Nairobi and its environs. But as for tonight, most parts of the country will experience wet conditions. I'll be getting to you with more details on that on the other side of the studio. O'Brien?
And I must admit that that's a beautiful dress there. Let's wait for the weather, which is coming up next. My name is O'Brien. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Have a good night.
Good evening and a warm welcome to Channel 1 Weather Updates. My name is Irene Mchoma Odem. It is one of those nights that the capital, Central Highlands, the Lake Basin region, western parts of the country, northwestern and the coastal strip will experience wet conditions over a few places, as the rest of the country will experience partly cloudy conditions. It will be cool and cloudy in the capital Friday morning, equally in Nyeri and Meru. Wet conditions will be experienced in Mombasa and Lamu. The northern parts of Kenya will experience sunny conditions equally over the Lake Basin region, but that won't be the case in the afternoon. There will be showers in Meru and Nyeri, Kisumu, Kakamega, Bungoma, Eldoret, Kitale, Narok, and Nakuru will experience showers accompanied by thunderstorms. The northeastern parts of the country, moving all the way to the southeastern lowlands, will continue to experience sunny conditions, equally at the coastal strip and also the northwestern parts of the country. The highest temperatures across the country will be experienced in Mandera at 35 degrees Celsius. The capital will experience maximum of 24 degrees Celsius, and for you in Voi, expect maximum of 30 degrees Celsius. That is your weather here in the home country. How about you cross the borders and see how it will be in other parts of the world? Do have a good night and see you tomorrow. God willing.
I greet you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I am so happy to bring you the word of God this day. May the Lord indeed speak to us as we read his word. You know, I want specifically today to speak to children. And I want to remind children today, wherever you are, that God loves you. God loves you. You know, it is said that one of the greatest needs of every human being is to be loved and also to love. And I know there are so many children that at this particular moment may be feeling that they are not loved by God. Probably that is why God is allowing the things that are happening. Maybe your parents have lost their jobs. Maybe your family is not doing very well and you're wondering, why is this happening? Why is God allowing this to happen to us? I want to remind you, God